Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Listen to this lecture very carefully. Okay, this is a very important topic. It covers both prelims, it covers both mains. Will be helpful for UPSC 2026 if you're going to write, and also the upcoming APPSC, TGPSC notification for the Group 1 and Group 2. I have placed this particular topic in the mains model answer way. Okay, means this is how you are going to write in your examination. But I have also covered the prelims area with regard to giving you a tabular form of all the deficits and their implications. Clear my point? Okay. Those who are watching me for the very first time, please do subscribe to my channel and try to share it as much as possible to all your friends who are preparing for aspirants or interested in economy. Another important point is that do join my S&T and economy classes, test series and mentorship. Okay, you can just take mentorship also if you're already a seasoned player. Okay, already gone through the coaching but need right guidance and strategy approach and test evaluation assessment etc. You can just join the mentorship sessions also. If you're being a part of my classes S&T or economy, you'll be getting polity mains answers, model answers as free, and all the current affairs with regard to AP or Telangana, national and international. All of this will be given to you. This is all about a small promotion that I generally give. Let us go ahead in our topic. So whenever you get a question, and this question is going to be a very direct question in the examination because they cannot manipulate it. Okay, how the deficits could be contained. The question may come like that. For that we are having foreign, okay, fiscal responsibility, budgetary management tax is there. Okay, along with that some other qualitative measures will be there. With the help of that we can able to cover the deficit, and that is only called as deficit financing is another important area, plus the way forward, how we can contain the deficits. Those are the other two main question and answer, and this is going to be a direct question in your examination. Okay, so you are going to write the introduction. So I have given you good amount of introduction. If you're writing 2-3 points of this introduction also, that is enough. I have given little bit extra. Why? Because if you have read and by hearted all these paragraph, at least you can represent 2 to 3 proper statement in the examination. So read little bit more, because if you have time then you can present it. If you don't have time, at least you can write 2 to 3 statements with a very lot of efficiency. Efficiency is important for the examination, remember this point. Okay, right. Now let us start our discussion with deficit. Okay, we are going to start the introduction with deficit defining it. Deficits are the key indicators of the government financial health. This is one. Okay, deficits are the key indicators of government's financial health. So deficits are the key indicators of government financial health, and they also help us to understand how large the fiscal indiscipline is there. That's the reason they are also good indicator that whether the deficit are in discipline or not. Deficit, because when we are talking about discipline, it is nothing but the revenues should not be very less when compared to the expenditure. Okay, if it is like this, if you are able to have this situation, that is very good. I am telling you hypothetically, but if it is moving like this, then it is called as indiscipline. So we have to make sure that we are in this particular scenario always. Okay, getting my point here, right? So I'll tell you one important best, because you might have already studied about it, but I'll tell you again. Suppose your salaries are 10,000, your expenditures are 20,000. So what do? You take a loan of 10,000 rupees. So 10,000 your salary, 10,000 loan, you have taken 20,000 and you have done your expenditures. Okay. Next month again your salary is 10,000, but you have taken a loan of 10,000. No. So in the 10,000 you are paying EMI interest 1,000. Again your expenditures are 20,000. Expenditures are same. So what will happen? 1,000 will go for what? EMI and interest. So you are left with only 9,000. 9,000 you are left with. Okay. So what is happening over a period of time? If your expenditures are not decreasing, your 9k will become 8k, 8k will become 7k, 6k, like that will happen. Ultimately, what will happen is your salary will completely go in what? Payments of debts, payments of interest and EMIs, etc. so and so forth, and you will be left with no money. Means your SOL, standard of living, will decrease and you will fall into the poorer category. Okay, that particular transition will happen for sure. So small understanding I have given to you with regard to why we have to make sure that fiscal, okay, our revenues and expenditure should be in discipline. I have given to you. We can have an elaborate discussion on it, a very statistical one, a very lucid one when you join the class. I will have a half an hour discussion on it, how it actually works. But I've given you the brief of it so that you can understand. Deficits are the key indicators of government fiscal health and fiscal discipline. I am repeating again and again because you have to by heart with me. That is the reason. So what they do, okay, they are the indicators, and what they represent that shortfall between the government's income, which is nothing but the revenue and expenditure. Over a specific period, you have to write it because we are talking about 1 year. Okay, annually only we will calculate all this deficit. That's the reason this word is important. If you're writing this, then it gives a clear identification that you are well versed with the subject and you will be having better advantage when compared to other students. Okay, so in the first 2 lines we have written what deficits, okay, what they indicate and what they represent. Okay, they represent the shortfall of government's income or nothing but revenues and expenditure over a specific period. This is important, usually a financial year. Then when the expenditure exceeds the revenue, the government must borrow or draw from the reserves to bridge the gap. So must borrow. Obviously, when your salary is less and when your expenditures are more, either you have to borrow a loan or you have to take out your FD, right or wrong. So you have to use your reserves also. That is very true. Either you borrow or take out, draw from the reserves to bridge the gap. So this much of also, if you're writing in the examination, that is more than enough. Understanding different types of deficits helps evaluate how the government manages its finances, allocate resources, sustains economic growth. This is a very good statement. This statement you should not skip, gives you a little bit edge when compared to other students. If you understand the deficit, what will happen? We'll able to evaluate how government manages its finances. Okay, government is more debtor or government is more efficient with regard to its managing the resources. Government, how they are allocating the resources, whether for the capital development or the revenue expenditure part, whether the infrastructure development or whether the pension, etc., so on and so forth. Qualitative, quantitative expenditure we are talking about here. So allocation of qualitative resources and sustain economic growth. With the help of deficits, okay, we can able to know that whether the economic growth will sustain or not. Each type of deficit will definitely provide unique insight into various aspects of fiscal performance. Means how we have performed over a period of time. In one fiscal year, how is your performance? Whether you have given more in revenue expenditure or more in capital expenditure, whether you have done more qualitative expenditure or more quantitative expenditure, whatever this is, it helps us to understand that how your fiscal performance is there. Is it creating a welfare society? Is it able to uplift the poor from the poverty line, etc., so and so forth? We can able to know with the help of what? Various types of deficit. Okay, and it also helps us to understand that how government of Telangana or government of India is able to understand. We can understand day-to-day revenue management to long-term borrowings and external trade balance also can be easily represented with the help of this. This point, if you don't write, also not important. Why? Because if you're writing these 3-4 lines, that will come to around half page or more than half page of your what I say is a group 1 booklet. Okay, then you are having 3 pages basically. Okay, 1 paper and 1 page will be there. So that is enough. Half page of the introduction is enough and 1/4 of the page is enough for the conclusion. Okay, you should not drag the conclusion according to your will and fancies. Make sure that you write the content very well. That is important. Introduction is very important. Okay, content is very important. Conclusions are given very, very less marks. Okay, now let us talk about budget deficit. Very important one. Very simple way I will tell you. It represented the deficit. Okay, deficit between the government expenditure and revenue. When the expenditure exceeds its total receipts, nothing but revenues of the government excluding the borrowings, then it is called as what? Budget deficit. Exactly, you have to study because this is how we are having the books. Okay, fine. So suppose a basket of fruits are there, in that apple is there, in that fruits and vegetables are there, in that apple is there, in that oranges is there, in that banana is there, in that spinach is there, in that coriander is there, in that you are having what? Kaddu is there, etc., so and so forth. So you try to separate it and try to see that, okay, good amount of minerals are there because the number of fruits are there, vegetables are there, good amount of fruits are there, so vitamins are also there, oil is also there, etc., so fats are also there, like this. So okay, individual can develop better. Okay, but if this, suppose if the more number of fruits are there or more number of vegetables are there, then you can say that okay, this particular person will have not a balanced nutrition is not there. In the same way, the deficits represent in such a way that it gives different aspects of government fiscal performance. So budget deficit represent the situation when the government's total expenditure exceeds what? Its receipts. Always mention this. Budget deficit is equal to total expenditure minus total receipts except borrowings. Means it is a very crude way. Very crude means how have you planned, means in this 1 month how your daddy has planned, okay, the various welfare activities, various important activities that are required for the home to thrive and to be well off. Okay, so dad's salary is 50,000, okay, and expenditure is this much. What is less, what is not less? Okay, if it is less, we have to go for borrowings. That will not say. Budget deficit is very crude way. This will tell us that okay, daddy's salary is 50 and expenditure of 60. So somehow daddy has to increase the salary. Okay, right or wrong? So it will give proper, or else we can do what? Expenditure less. We can do expenditure less. So this is the way we understand that in a crude way we can understand that what is the actual scenario. Suppose if that salary is 30 and the expenditures are around 60, very huge gap is there. Then if the borrowings are being taken, then it will have a very high impact on what? The salary itself, because lot of money of this borrowing, interest, etc. will be going from the actual salary. It will become even lesser, like 25,000. The gap between the expenditure and the revenue will be with the income will more increase, right? So that's why in the crude way it is very important for us to understand that how it works. Implication: a budget deficit indicates that government is spending beyond its means and needs to borrow funds to meet the gap. So whenever we use the word deficit, it actually means that you are less. Okay, how much is required? Less than required. You are having less than required. When this scenario only come, we use a word called deficit. Otherwise, word will not come into picture itself. Getting my point, right? Then we are having the second important one, fiscal deficit. Now, fiscal deficit is a very important one. It represents the difference between government expenditure, total receipts. Okay, here also we exclude borrowings. So here in the budget deficit, we have considered what? Total expenditure, total receipts. Here we are considering total expenditure same to same. But here in total receipt, we are having revenue plus capital receipts are there. No, revenue component is there here. In the capital component, we are only talking about non-debt capital receipts. Nothing but when you are doing the disinvestment of the companies, you will get money like Air India. No, that money is only being counted. If you are having debt receipts, again it will have a more impact on our borrowing or not. Yes, you have to go for more. It means you are going for more borrowing. You are going for what? More borrowing. Clear my point? So whenever you are doing this fiscal deficit, it is very important that you have to write like this: total expenditure minus revenue receipt plus non-debt capital receipt. So we have excluded from budget deficit to the fiscal deficit. The only difference is that we have excluded in budget deficit, we have excluded. Okay, we have actually included all the debts and non-debt receipt, but in fiscal deficit we have added only non-debt capital receipt. Debt capital receipts are removed from the fiscal deficit. If the fiscal deficit is higher, the government is relying heavily on borrowings. Okay, means now government is having what? 100 rupees. Revenue receipts are like 50, and non-debt capital receipts. Non-debt means government don't have to pay it back to anyone. Suppose it is 0. So it means what? What is the fiscal deficit? 50. Very huge. 50% is there. Suppose expenditures are 100. Okay, then revenue receipts are 50. Then after disinvestment of some companies, we got 30. Okay, it means what? 100 minus 80. The only 20% what we are having, what? Fiscal deficit, right? So this is a better situation because debt capital receipts, we don't have to pay much in what? Borrowings, and we don't have to pay much for the borrowings that we have taken. Because that's why if this fiscal deficit increases, it means what? Okay, fiscal deficit is increasing, then what will happen? It really means that you are paying higher interest, higher debt, and higher interest payments you have to do in future. It means what? In the just example I have shown you that if the 20% deficit increases to 50% deficit, if the more deficit is there, what will happen? Basically what will happen? you have taken large amount of money in borrowings, which you have to pay a lot of debt and also higher debt and interest payments. Okay. Then we are having revenue deficit. Easily to understand that the difference between the revenue expenditure and revenue received. A revenue deficit indicates the government current income is insufficient to meet its current expenses. That's all, nothing more than that. Okay, it does not lead to any kind of what I say that capital formation. Okay, why? Because whatever the money you are getting, all that money, your dad get 10,000 rupees and all the 10,000 rupees will go for what? Groceries, ration, etc. so and so forth. That cannot spend anything on education, that cannot spend anything on renovation of the home, etc. So no capital expenditure you can able to do. So when this, if the revenue deficit is increasing, it means the government is not having enough money to go for what? Capital formation, nothing but to create assets like infrastructure, road or markets for the agriculture or any kind of systems. Okay, clear. Then primary deficit. Primary deficit is a deficit which it does not take interest payments into consideration. Okay, that formula you have to remember. So this is the way you have tried in the examination also. Primary deficit is a fiscal deficit minus interest payment. So primary deficit is equal to fiscal deficit, already we have learned, from interest payments. Fine. So whatever the fiscal deficit is there, remove that interest payments. It means very clearly when we are talking about fiscal deficit here. What is the meaning of fiscal deficit? Total revenue minus, so total expenditure minus revenue received plus non-debt capital receipts. Clear. So fiscal deficit is there. When you have met your fiscal deficit is there, nothing but you are short of money. When you have met your whatever the fiscal deficit you have got, okay, 50%, let us suppose you have got a fiscal deficit. In that, okay, the amount of money which is paying for interest payments you have to remove. Then it will give a clear picture of how much amount of money is left with you also. Okay. So fiscal deficit is nothing but total expenditure, okay, minus revenue receipts plus non-debt capital is NDCR. Clear. Total expenditure minus. If this is like increased, like if it is like 50%, okay, in that 50%, okay, 10% you are paying interest payment. So actually how much is left with you? Only 40. Actually how much is left with you to do the spending? 40. Means again you have to go for what? More borrowings. A lower primary deficit, okay, is better fiscal. If it is primary deficit is also increasing, it means that okay, smaller portion of borrowing is being used to pay interest on the past debts. Okay, means some borrowings, whatever you have used, whatever you have done, in that from borrowings you are again paying what? Your past debts. So it is going way back. Effective revenue deficit is nothing but revenue deficit minus grant for creation of capital assets. Just like whatever the example I have told you that 10,000 rupees is father's salary and the expenditures are 20,000. Clear my point here. And all the money, not expenditures are only 10,000. Okay, the income is completely utilized for what? For day-to-day operations of the home. So no capital assets are being created. Okay, no capital assets are being created. Here also it is very same, okay, given to us. Effective revenue deficit is a revenue deficit minus grants for creation of capital assets. Okay. So government, central government will also transfer to the state government. The central government, whenever they are transferring to the central state government, okay, according to the tax devolution formula, okay. So effective revenue deficit we are having, which is nothing but revenue deficit, which itself is nothing but revenue expenditure is more than revenue receipt RR, minus grants for creation of capital asset GCCA. Okay, so in the revenue deficit, if you talk about the central government, let us suppose effective revenue deficit, government of India gets 100 rupees. In that government of the Indian government, union government gives like 20 rupees given to to the states for the asset creation. So they are left with again 80 only. They are left with again 80. So it continuously goes on reducing. These are not important, but still I'll tell you. Trade deficit is nothing but value of imports minus value of exports. If the imports value is less than the exports value, then what will happen? Again, it means what? More amount of money is going on, more Indian rupee will be weakened. Indian rupee will be weakened and there won't be much demand for the rupee. That's why it does not sustain with the dollar and dollar prices will increase and our money will be devaluated per unit of currency. Current account deficit, again, it is completely different one. We'll study in later. in balance of payment. This is a table that you have to remember of always. Clear? Conclusion. Deficits are essential tool for assessing the fiscal and economic conditions of a country. That's why you should not be repetitive. Whatever you did in introduction, you have to leave it here, and one point you can add here. While moderate deficit can stimulate growth, that is very important. If there is a deficit is there, generally across the world, it will stimulate growth through productive spending. Persistent to high deficit may lead to, again, if you're going for high deficit, may lead to inflation, debt accumulation, reduce investor confidence, etc. So on and so forth. This much you write, that is more than enough for your examination. I hope this all clear to you. If you're having more doubts, write in the comment section. I'll be more happy to help you out.